Well, okay. Well, okay, Parenti. Capitalism doesn't work so well for the common people in those third world countries, but it has given us a good standard of living. Let's now look at that. Will you give me 3 minutes to disabuse you of that myth that some of you, I won't ask for a show of hands, but some of you have held all your life? Let's look at our own North American society. Let's put aside the massive inequalities. Let's put aside the tens of millions who struggle from hand to mouth. Let's put aside the many who call themselves middle class but who live without any real economic security. Let's put aside the desperate ones at the very bottom. Let's put aside the attacks and impoverishment on the public sector and the destruction of a livable environment. Let's just put all that aside for a minute, those little things. And let's accept the idea that we live in great material abundance, and compared to much of the world, we do. Many of us in Canada and the United States live very well indeed. That's why the victims of capitalism, we always hear about the victims of communism wanting to flee communism. Nothing's ever been said about the victims of capitalism. I come from a family of victims of capitalism. My grandparents, both families, came from southern Italy, grinding terrible poverty. They were victims of capitalism. They came over here to be victims of capitalism again, but a little less so. And that's what happens. So let's accept this idea of great material abundance. But it wasn't capitalism that gave us a good standard of living. It was the democratic struggle against corporate capitalism that did it. I mean, why don't Canadians work for 15 cents an hour as people in Haiti and Indonesia do? Is it because you're just so much more self-respecting, you just wouldn't do that? Or is it because you're at a level of democratic class struggle, a historical level that has advanced to a more favorable level? You know, North Americans used to work for starvation and subsistence wages. In 1900, Canada and the United States and the Netherlands and Denmark and France and other countries that are today considered very prosperous capitalist countries, Western industrial countries. They don't want to use the word capitalism as much. They just don't want you to think about capitalism. They were all third world nations almost a half a century before the term was invented. Child labor was widespread. Poverty was widespread. Unemployment, underemployment, 14-hour workdays, no social services to speak of except an occasional church or charity, no social benefits, typhoid epidemics in Philadelphia and Baltimore, tuberculosis, other diseases of poverty, no public housing or public health services to speak of, very little public education, no public libraries, hardly. Advances came not with capitalism. Capitalism was reigning. Capitalism, the capitalist class, the Mellons, the Morgans, the Rockefellers, the Harringtons, all these people, they were making it in there. Advances came when we made certain democratic victories. The 8-hour day, the end of child labor, worker safety, the right to labor unions and collective bargaining, public health programs, disability insurance, old age pensions. These are things that we have been fighting for, still inadequate, still insufficient, still not universal, and yet these things, as inadequately as they are, as incomplete as they are still under siege by the same people who fought against those things. It wasn't capitalism that brought these advances, it was democracy. It was the people acting as the active social agents of their own lives, fighting and struggling for those things. And the capitalists, the rich bankers, the merchant class, the corporate class, the slaveholders, they all fought against democracy. They fought against political democracy as well as economic democracy. In the United States, that class fought against the elimination of property qualifications for voters and office holders. They fought against universal suffrage for working men. They fought against suffrage for women. They fought against the abolition of slavery and Jim Crow. They fought against honest elections, and they're still doing a very good job of that in Florida. They fought against democratic ballot access